2026 was just a bad year for authoritarian and totalitarian leaders, especially for the CCP, who was trying to establish this idea of a new alternative world order where the one that they think is China rising, the United States falling. And if you have ever been, honestly, watching any news, global news for the last few years, you rarely see this idea of the US is still in control. It's always this idea of the United States is declining. Especially if you watch those pro-China channels or even just regular mainstream news, they say that China is the one that's rising. Or you think that a new world order is already in place, to the point where everyone and their mother thinks that a China rising decade is approaching, and China is, of course, at the heart of this next few decades to come. Is that true, though? I think 2026, or the last few weeks, have told us the opposite. The United States is not declining, the West is not finished. In fact, we're seeing the opposite. Now, these military exercise videos you see being published by the PLA, it looks like the Chinese military is on some next level stuff, best in the world. But the reality is they're too busy focusing on training their riot police to suppress protests after what recently happened in Iran, and to some degrees, what happened in Venezuela. And that's what exactly we're trying to talk about today. The last few weeks have shown us that the CCP and their allies, Iran, Venezuela, North Korea, to some degrees Russia as well, they're nothing but paper tigers, burning up in the face of a real superpower. Oh my God, David is ass-kissing the US again. Well, yes, but also, these are just simply objective facts. Let me explain. The US bombed Iran's nuclear sites last year in the Operation Midnight Hammer. Deep targets for Dow, Natanz, Isfahan, B-2 bombers, submarines, 14 bunker busters, and the Iranian air defenses. Let's just say they didn't stop it, but they literally did not see it coming. And yeah, they got those from China. And now you think that if China really is at the heart of this new world order, that would be the moment that China shines with this clash. You would call it not a direct confrontation, but at least there would be signs that they are matching up to what was happening. Of course, this isn't done with slogans, which the CCP is very good at. It's not done with strongly worded statements from the foreign ministry spokesperson. And of course, it's not done at the UN with these speeches from different countries that China has bought over with money. It's with presence. Did China show up? Obviously, the answer was no. Paper tiger looks huge until you can actually ask it to enforce something that it wants to protect. In this case, it was Iran. And of course, they couldn't. China's military prowess didn't show up at all in Iran. Chinese defense tech didn't change the outcome. And Chinese deterrence didn't stop the bombers. Now, the only thing that really showed up is, well, reality. Inspiration, in fact, and I think that's a key idea here. Now, obviously, we know that facts don't care about your feelings. As it turns out, we actually got the opposite effect of a China-led global order. And now you're seeing the after effects of what happened when they bombed the nuclear sites. You're seeing the Iranian people actually gained inspiration to come out and overthrow the regime that they despise so much. And that's actually the second part I want to talk about, which is what happens when the bombs come and when they fell. It sometimes leads to war, sometimes leads to people to believe that devastation is to follow. But in the case of what the United States has done in the last year or so, is that it brought inspiration. Take a look at what's happening in Venezuela and Iran right now. The United States has successfully not only removed two of its top adversaries, regional instability factors, but also at the same time, it has reinforced and emboldened its own citizens to come out to seek freedom. And actually, the only thing it didn't awaken is Chinese superpower. Now, we're always trying to make this comparison, well, at least when you talk to people that have heard news about China, is the fact that they have a huge military, it even has a bigger military by quantity, maybe not quality, but by quantity, that can match with the United States in a one-to-one sort of confrontation. But when it comes to real world examples, what we've only seen is that the United States has done practical, real operations, and China has not done so. Now, because of this, the bombs themselves not only hit concrete, it legit hits at the heart of power. It actually hits, in my opinion, it hits at psychology as well. Because you're seeing what happens to the people afterwards. It awoken them. So when true global leadership comes, the people who suffer the most under said brutal regime, actually sees hope and sees light and sees inspiration, and they see dependency on that superpower to solve the problem for them, which obviously in many cases it doesn't happen like that. And I won't come here and claim that 100% of all of the regime changes in the past or anything that the United States has done is 100% correct or successful. But what I'm trying to say is that at its current state, as we see it right now, as we're living through it, this is what global presence actually looks like. Now, the reactions from the CCP and its state media is nothing really. Anything substantive, they haven't done so. It's just a bunch of AI videos. This one here, published by Chinese state media after the Venezuela operation, it's supposed to make the United States look bad, right? This ego jumping off of a helicopter, landing in Venezuela, taking their oil or whatnot. But honestly, dude, this makes the US Army look awesome, doesn't it? A freaking ego soldier here. The reality is no amount of propaganda can actually replace real power or the projection or display of real power. And I think more importantly, I keep saying the word inspiration, but if you really look at it, the people that are thanking the United States right now are the Venezuelans and the Iranians. And to some degree, people in China also, because they're really supporting what's happening in Iran, sort of vis-a-vis of what could happen in their own country. So this one-off action, no matter how big or small, can truly shake a country's desire to fight. Inspiration. By the time you watch this video, Iran could have been hit with another punitive US strike, as the regime has murdered many, maybe into the thousands, for wanting a new leadership, for protesting. And right now, whether you like it or not, well, only one country has the ability to impose those consequences across the oceans, across the land. And only one country can actually go in, hit those targets, and force the entire world to watch as it does so. And that's the United States. So I'm not saying that I'm doing this because there's somehow a benefit to me, but I do think that the reality here is what's important. There is not going to be a China century, not one where the CCP is in power. We're only talking about the existence of China as a country right now, but we're not talking about a China-led world order. And I don't think anybody would say that or claim that now, given what we've just seen. So let's talk specifically about Venezuela. Now, recently there was an account posting about an interview with a security person who basically was an eyewitness to the entire operation to capture Maduro. Honestly, it contained some insane details about what went down there. So I'll just share sort of a summary with you. And again, this is according to an interview with an eyewitness of what happened that night, which the US White House press secretary actually retweeted. So seems like it's a legit claim. Now, radar suddenly shut off without warning. Most of the equipment, by the way, in Venezuela comes from Chinese military technology. Drones suddenly appeared overhead, catching guards off guard. About 8 helicopters then arrived, deploying roughly 20 technologically advanced US soldiers, probably the Delta Force operators, who didn't look like anything they've fought before. Now, they say that it was a battle, but really it was like a massacre. Soldiers fired with extreme precision and what they thought was something like 300 rounds per minute each, killing hundreds of the security there, guarding Maduro without any US casualties. And then they also used, the US that is, a sonic weapon that was used to cause intense head pain, nosebleeds, and vomiting blood, immobilizing these defenders. And all the details, honestly, if you read the entire post, it sounds kind of unbelievable. It sounds like the plot of some like Hollywood, drama. But it's true. That's actually what happened. The special operation took less than 2 hours. People were joking like it's not even enough to make a Hollywood movie. But the message was simple, right? It was like the US-led world order isn't just a saying. It's a system where people who believe that it's a system where if you are part of it, you're essentially built up. And if you are against it, you'll be punished. And it's really it's a simple idea of punishment versus protection. It can punish, it can protect, and it can also do other things in between. And I think that's the ultimate signal, which is that you can really do a lot of things to pretend like you are leading the world, but when it comes push to shove, what's actually real is these key decisive moments. So let's look at what China has done. So China has, built a lot of influence in Latin America through trade, loans with things around it. Although it doesn't have a lot of oil attachment to Venezuela, but Iran is one where they, in the Middle East, have a lot of the same thing. Cultivate the influence of Iran, supply it, fund it, which then Iran goes to fund those terrorist groups. And this idea of alternative system with China at the heart of it, if you really look at it, it's an incomplete structure. The reason why China has this incomplete world order is actually very easy to understand. The core mission of the so-called alternative order is essentially to combat against the United States, right? So the core tenets of it is that you create these distractions for the United States. You want four at least at all times. One of them preferably being terrorism, because we've seen the effects of the United States being involved in counterterrorism activities for 20 plus years. So that's a big one, right? Namely, you have Iran funding these terrorist proxies. The second one could be something like Russia, where you have Russia engaging with another European allies or adjacent ally-esque country like Ukraine to create another distraction. And the third is you have a country, say, maybe in Latin America. That's the backyard of the United States. Here you create this idea, maybe through drugs, maybe through cartel or narco activities, something related to that, that can cause a lot of problems as well. And then maybe you have a fourth one, which is China itself. And that, through economic competition, tech competition, create this idea of distraction. So with the four distractions, the United States has effectively eliminated two of them so far. And if it can solve the Russian-Ukraine war, then obviously that puts everything back to solely focusing against this ECP. And so if you look at it like that, this idea of a China-led order has essentially lost its attraction or lost its appeal. Sure, North Korea could be one of them as well because of the nuclear potential, right, of their nuclear program. But what I'm trying to say is just the idea of it is that you have to fortify. So losing Venezuela and Iran as distractors isn't really just about oil, at least from China's perspective. It's because those countries represent the alternative architecture of the world, right? It's like you're removing permanent problems for the United States by a simple strike or by a simple operation. And now the CCP is clearly worried. Now, some people might think that, well, Taiwan could be a target because, well, look, Trump just took the president of Venezuela. China could take the president of Taiwan. Well, it's actually not like that. It's not that simple. First is we mentioned the operational capabilities. Does China even have that, special operations ability to do so? And the second, I think you have to look at the goal of Taiwan's defense, right? Its entire defense is essentially formulating plans against a Chinese invasion. And so if we put it that way, the actual invasion itself is much more difficult versus if your country has to, not solely focus on that one particular scenario. And I think one of the most important factors is contribution to the global economy through the chip supply chain, direct U.S. security commitments. And as much as we don't want to admit it, I really think that Xi Jinping does not want to anger Trump. And if honestly what the whole operation in Venezuela has shown us is that China really doesn't have any capabilities. It's all talks. And so if anything, I think we should be less worried that Taiwan could be a target and more worried about, when will the CCP collapse, because from the looks of it, all of its friends are going through something. Cuba could be next, and who knows what's going to happen with North Korea. So I think at the end of the day, it's a really good lesson for us to understand that whatever it projects versus whatever its reality is, well, we seem to have slowly come to realize that China is all talks, no actions.